Good morning. How are we doing today? My name is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit. Welcome back to another video. And today I want to run you through how to do the Postflop equity exercises in the Postflop workbook. These are pretty simple once you've done them a couple of times, but if you've never really done this kind of work before, this will be very, very helpful. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so let's begin with page number 12. This is a hand versus hand example. And just for the record, you're not going to use hand versus hand stuff a tremendous amount of the time because you rarely know your opponent's exact two hole cards, but this can be very helpful for understanding, say, your hand versus their range, because their range is a collection of single hands just like this. So it can be helpful for starting to understand the patterns and be able to estimate hand versus range far more easily. So let's start with page number 12, and just for the record, you can use Flopzilla for this, you can use Equilab for this, you can use lots of different software for this. My Equilab, for whatever reason, I can't get it to go really big so you can see exactly what's going on here, but if you're using it, it's not too difficult. So let's just do this top one, so ace, 7, deuce. Let's just do that. Ace, diamond, 7 diamonds, deuce, clubs. You can always type it in or hit the little card icon and select the cards right in there. And the first hand is our hand, ace of spades, queen of spades. Again, you can click the icon right here to select that, or just type it in manually. 8S, 7S, perfect. Evaluate it, and what do we got? 82% equity, and of course that means the other one is 18%, right? Because both players' equity added up is going to be 100%. And if you're in something like Flopzilla, it's a little bit wonky to do this, but you can still do the exact same thing. So plug in the board first, ace of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, deuce of clubs. Plug in our hand first, ace of spades, queen of spades. Their hand is 8 of spades, 7 of spades. By the way, you could just type that right in here, hit enter, and bam, just the spades version is selected right there. And equity right down here is for our hand, 82% equity, which of course means the opposite is 18. Sweet, not too difficult. All right, let's finish the last two on this page. So we have our ace king versus their ace 7, right top pair, top kicker versus 2 pair, and then 10s versus 6, 5. So we can come through and just kind of make a couple changes. The board stays the exact same in the spot. Our hand is ace king of hearts. Theirs is ace of clubs, 7 of clubs. And by the way, if you're ever just typing this into Flopzilla, the card has to be capitalized. So if it's an ace king, queen, jack 10, that has to be capitalized and the suit has to be lowercase. If you try to do it the opposite way, say like lowercase a, it's just not going to work. It's going to brick on you. So just be aware that that's what's going on here. In case it ever turns red on you, you're like, what the heck is happening? That's typically what happens. So in this situation, again, our equity is definitely going to be lower since we are way, way, way behind in this spot. So 15% equity, perfect, versus theirs, 100% minus 15% gives us 85%. The last one is going to be 10s versus 6, 5, which is a, decently strong pair with a blocker to their flush draw, minus, doing that the wrong way, sorry, 10 of clubs, perfect, and then their hand is the 6 of diamonds, 5 of diamonds. Excellent. And you notice that we have 66% equity. Perfect, which would give them, 34% equity? Perfect. All right, so let's pull up the answer key, make sure we got everything correct. Again, the answer key is page number right here, so look for page 12 because that's the page we're on. And what do we got? Top one, 8218, 8218, perfect. 1585, 1585, great. 6634, 6634, perfect. We did everything correct on this page. All right, now let's flip it over and do a hand versus range example, and this is from page 20. So again, we can just start with Flopzilla since that's the kind of software I had in mind when I was creating the workbook. So we have the flop of 10, 9, 3, perfect. We have our hand, which is queen of clubs, jack of clubs, perfect. And then in this situation, we're looking for the equity when our opponent has a wider range versus a tighter range of hands. And just for the record, you can copy the range right out of here, or you can just grab it from the workbook, whichever works best for you. Page 20, first range is this one. Let's just grab that. Just copy it, paste it in here, hit enter, and there we go. And you notice this range is exactly this range over here. And we can find our equity right this moment is, 48%. Perfect, which would mean theirs is 52%. Perfect. And then if we go for the tighter range, the one on the bottom, right, that's page 20, the bottom one, copy that range, go to clear, paste it, enter, there we go. Again, tighter range right there. And our equity in this situation is 38%. And what do we got here? 62. Perfect. All right. So when you're doing these exercises, try not just to burn through them and try to write down your equity as fast as humanly possible. Like, really think for a moment, like, why do the equities look the way they do? So in this range, obviously there are a bunch of different hands our opponent can have. Right here, we just have overcards and an open-ended straight draw, which is pretty great. And you notice that we retain pretty decent equity even against a tighter range of hands. But it's important to understand that as we start throwing in all of these weaker combinations, yes, many of these still beat us, right? Even like ace-high kind of hands, but by the same token, we have a larger chunk of equity against, say, a naked ace-high versus certain other kind of hands. So you don't just want to burn through this and jot down the equity as fast as humanly possible and just end there. Like, really think for a moment, why do the equities look the way they do? Think about the hands that are in your opponent's range. How often do they have things like pairs or top pair or over pairs or really strong hands? And how does your hand compare against that? And again, their range is a collection of these individual hands. So think about what's in there. How does your hand perform against it? And it can really help you make some better mathematical decisions post-flop, especially when it comes to floating or continuation betting or doing other things than just playing really, really fit or fold, which of course is not our goal when we're playing post-flop. And just to make sure, we go check the answer key to make sure we got everything correct, right up here, page 20. Answers 4852, 4852, perfect. 3862, 3862, excellent. Got everything correct. Now let's run and do a range versus range example next. All right, so jumping over to page 28, let's do this one together. And by the way, if you're using Flopzilla, this is one where you're going to have to expand out and use the multiplayer mode. So if you have Flopzilla open, up here, you can just hit this multiplayer mode button. Perfect. Notice it opens up, and now all of a sudden you can add multiple ranges up top. Just going to do Control N real quick just to clear everything out. And let's rock and roll. So let's start by plugging in the board. What do we have? King of diamonds, 8 of spades, 8 of clubs. Perfect. And now we're going to start by plugging in both opponents' ranges. I'm just going to grab them both from the answer key. So let's just grab our range first. Put our range over on the left. Perfect. Enter. I'm going to hit this plus button up top. That will expand and give us another range to work with. That allows us to do this range versus that range. I'm going to grab that one from the answer key as well. Copy. Down here, paste it in. Perfect. So we have both players' ranges in this situation, and we're going to start by doing just pure raw equity. So what is the equity of each person's range? You notice in this situation we have 47%. And our opponent, of course, is going to have the opposite of that, so 53%. Excellent. And then the next question is, what are the 3 strongest hands in each of these ranges? So in this situation, if we're thinking about our range, let's just pop that open real quick. Obviously, we can just kind of like stay up here near the top, or you can flip over to the equity graph, and this will show you every single combination that we have. And obviously, the strongest ones are going to be the best hands that we have in our range. So we have quads, we have king 8, and we have ace 8. So 8-8, was it king 8? Yeah, and then ace 8. Excellent. And then if we flick over and do our opponents, what do we got here? We notice if we scroll all the way up to the top, they also have quads, they have pocket kings, and then king 8 after that. So they have 8, kings, and then king 8. So those are the strongest ones. And you notice that the nutted range advantage rate is pretty similar here. They both have pretty overlapped hands. Obviously, the kings for our opponent does give them a slight edge, but it's nothing too egregious. So I'd say in this situation, it's pretty darn similar and right similar in that spot. And one thing to notice when you're doing the range versus range stuff is that it's oftentimes going to be very, very close, right? These equities are usually going to run pretty narrow, usually somewhere kind of between 45 and 55 for both player. If you ever see those equities go wider than that, say like 60-40 or something like that, that is something that you definitely want to take note of, because that means one player is going to have a massive, massive equity edge in a range versus range situation, which is something you 100% want to know. It doesn't come up a tremendous amount of the time, especially on flops, but definitely be looking for it when you're doing this kind of exploration through the workbook. And of course, let's just check our work real quick. So page 28, our equity 47, there's 53, perfect. Nutted is similar and both hands match, right? 8's king 8, ace 8, perfect. 8's kings and king 8, perfect, excellent. So we did everything correct, and that is how you do the equity examples in the Postflop workbook. As always, if you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there and happy grinding.